Let's start. I'm reading. Okay? It's 8 o'clock, so we start. Therefore, the quietistic tendency in man must be got to recognize its own incompleteness and admit on an equality with itself the truth which lies behind the kinetic tendency, the fulfillment of God in man and the presence of the divine in all action of the human race. So what he's saying is, even if you are feeling, even if you are following, okay, the non-quietistic philosophies, for instance, the Gita and those integral yoga, who are telling you very clearly that the world is not to be refused, the world is not to be rejected, the world is not to be abandoned. You have to remain in the physical world and do it. But if you are in an incomplete and an ignorant state, okay, how will you do the work? So you cannot. So therefore, first you have to climb to the self. You have to climb by saying no, the neti method. It is not that you are not doing works in the physical world, but you are telling yourself that I am not the body, I am not the vital, I am not the mind. So I am pure consciousness. That beautiful shloka is there of Shankaracharya. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. So what are you? Sadananda Rupa Shivoham. I am Sadananda Rupa. Sat Ananda Rupa. I am a form of that Sat and Ananda. And that is what you have to do. So what happens? The first result is you go to the self and you realize that what you were thinking to be absolutely real, all the forms in the physical world, are not at all as real as you think them to be. Okay? Later on, you come to know that even the transient things in the world also have a permanent presence of the divine in the world, and therefore they are real in another sense. They are real in time and space, but the reality is outside time and space. The divine is outside time and space, permanently real. The things in the physical world, the forms, are impermanently real, but there is a permanent reality even in the physical world. Behind all the forms, the divine presence is there always. Okay? If you look only at the surface, then you see then that it is transient. Something is there, it is created and disappears. So first, even for the non-quietistic tendencies, you have to first get to the self. Then realize that it is not the full thing, because you don't have the power to change things in the physical world. And the divine is there everywhere. So why should you remove? Why should you reject something that the divine has created? There must be a purpose to it. So you recognize that your experience of the self, the quietistic tendency, you get the peace and the calm and the detachment from the physical world. It is good experience, but it should be the base of the next. It should not be the end in itself. It should not be the goal, like the ascetic is saying and the Buddhists are saying. It should be the starting point of another greater experience, the divine presence in the physical world. So you come down, don't remain stationed only in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Your consciousness must come down into the body-mind life and slowly change that also. That is the Gita's proposal and also Sri Aurobindo. So that's what he's saying in this long sentence. Therefore, the quietistic tendency in man must be got to recognize its own completeness. It's not the full thing. And admit on an equality with itself, the truth which lies behind the kinetic tendency. The kinetic tendency, don't give up the physical world. The movement in the physical world also is divine, so not to give up. Okay. The fulfillment of God in man and the presence of the divine in all the action of the human race. So first you get rid of the wrong idea of the reality of the universe and get to the self. Understand that principle that you have to act in the physical world not with attachment, greed and desire, but by a rejection of body, mind, life, but also of attachment, desire and ego. So I go to the next sentence. God is there, not only in the silence, but in the action. He is there in the physical world, but not in the form. He is there behind the form. You have to discover that. The quietism of the impassive soul, unaffected by nature, and the kinetism of the soul, giving itself to nature so that the great world sacrifice, the Purusha Yajna, may be effected, are not a reality and a falsehood in perpetual struggle, nor yet two hostile realities, one superior, the other inferior, and each fatal to each other. It is not like that. Okay? They are actually complementary aspects. You should not consider them as opposites, which many do. And there can even be a middle stance. Okay, the world is not unreal, but the divine, full divine you can get only up there. That also is not to be indulged in. So this is what Sri is saying. The Gita is saying. They are the double term of a divine manifestation. Which are the double term? The silence and the activity. The silence and the movement. Chit and Shakti. Purusha and Prakriti. All the same. Purusha is consciousness, Prakriti is power, movement, energy, constant movement. So the two are complementary aspects of each other. Now, the Akshara alone is not the whole key to the fulfillment, not the very highest secret. This is the mistake that the Buddhists and the Mayavadins make. They feel that the Akshara is the second level. The Kshara is the first level where you are in ignorance. The Akshara is the place where you realize you are outside the world and you realize that the self is a reality. The world seems to be unreal. But after that, you have to come down. So, the Akshara alone is not the whole key to the fulfillment, not the very highest secret. The double fulfillment, the reconciliation, is to be sought in the Purushottama, represented here by Krishna, at once Supreme Being, Lord of the worlds and Avatar. So what's the double fulfillment? First, you get the realization of the silence, the inaction, the static condition, the perfect stability. You get that. Then you come down and realize the divine also in the movement. So this is what Sri is saying. Double fulfillment. The reconciliation is to be sought not by coming down, but by going up. If you go up to the Purushottama level, which is the third level, then you have the power to change and transform even your body, mind, life at level 1. Okay, that's what it thinks. And here the Purushottama is represented by Krishna. At once Supreme Being, Lord of the worlds and Avatar. Shri Krishna is the Avatar. He is the Lord of the worlds. The divinized man, entering into his divine nature, will act even as he acts. So divinized man will act even as he, who is the second he, the divine. The divinized man, enter into his divine nature, will act even as he acts, as the divine acts. Okay? Maybe he should have put H cap, the second H. He acts. He will not give himself up to inaction. So the one who reaches the self should not be in a hurry to think that that's the last step. He should be, in fact, that's why they say in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, Sri Aurobindo's yoga starts where the others end. This is what they say. This is not out of a sense of superiority or a sense of, putting down the others. No, not at all. It is that the real movement, the real recognition of the divine everywhere can come after you have attained the silence, attained the nirvana consciousness. Okay? But if I use the word nirvana, there is an implication that you are rejecting the word. You don't reject the word. Even in Sri Aurobindo's case, he entered the self, okay, the Brahman consciousness, and he found that the physical world is unreal. for a long time. But he waited, he didn't jump to conclusions. And slowly, that void, that shunyam, which is there, started filling up with power, with love, with knowledge. All these things started pouring in, even higher than the second level. So, to know him, now he's putting edge cap. That is why they say the Srivendra is not very attentive to his capitalization. That's what he said. Here very clearly you can see that. No? He's saying the second, even as he acts, he could have put H in a capital because it's a divine acting. He will not give himself up to inaction. He is the lower case, okay, that's fine because he's a human being. He will not give himself up to inaction. The divine is at work in man in the ignorance and work in man in the knowledge. So he is at work in man in the ignorance and at work also in man in the knowledge. So divine is acting even here in the physical world and also he is acting in the self also. To know him now kept, is our soul's highest welfare and the condition of its perfection. But to know, realize him, again kept, as a transcendent peace and silence is not all. It's only a middle step. The secret that has to be learned is at once the secret of the eternal and unborn divine, that's the self, and the secret of the divine birth and works, janma karma cha me divyam. So, even in the physical world, he is acting karma, janma karma, even taking birth into the physical world also is only divine action. So, man also should do that, and he has a capacity to do that. The action which proceeds from that knowledge will be free from all bondage. Just 1 minute. Sorry for the interruption. So that's what he's saying. Janma karma jana. Not only I am in a static condition, I am divine, but also in movement and action also I am divine. May. Janma karma cha may divya. My birth and my action is also divine. That's Krishna is saying. The action which proceeds from that knowledge will be free from all bondage. You will be completely free even if you are doing action. He who so knoweth me, says the teacher, is not bound by works. Okay? Even the Isha Upanishad, even the Isha Upanishad says that. Okay? The Isha Upanishad is the smallest of the Upanishads, only 18 verses. But Srivendra gives the longest possible attention to the Isha Upanishad and translates it fully and even writes a whole book on the Isha Upanishad because the Isha Upanishad says, na karma lipyate nare. So, karma does not bind man, which is the opposite of what is a current idea in India. Okay? Action need not bind man to slavery, to the action. He can be free. That's what he says. So, Gita is saying, he who so knows me, says the teacher, is not bound by works. If you know the divine, you are not bound by works. But if you don't know the divine, yes, you are a slave to nature. Okay. If the escape from the obligation of works and desire, from the wheel of rebirth, is to be the aim and ideal, then this knowledge is to be taken as a truth, the broad way of escape. For, says the Gita, he who knows in their right principles my divine birth and works comes when he leaves his body, not to rebirth, but to me, O Arjuna. These are all from the 4th chapter. The 4th chapter, all these verses are there in the 4th chapter. Through the knowledge and possession of the divine birth, he comes to the unborn and imperishable divine, who is the self of all beings. Aja Avyaya Atma. Okay? But Ajo Vyaya Atma, when you put the Sandhi, it becomes Ajo Vyaya Atma. Through the knowledge and execution of divine works, to the master of works, the Lord of all beings, Bhutanam Ishvara, he lives in that unborn being. His works are those of that universal master. So, clearly, yes, you use the Sankhya philosophy and the Bhakti Yoga, but you also have to do the Karma Yoga. That is the final say of the Gita and also say, don't give up the physical world. Now we come to the next chapter, the possibility and purpose of avatarhood. Mind you, the avatarhood concept is very peculiar to India. Okay. Everywhere else, there is an idea that the world, there is no divine in the world. But avatarhood, the concept of avatarhood, is a direct consequence of the Advaita philosophy. Because the Advaita philosophy says that there is only one, and that's the Supreme Lord. And if only one is there, how can the physical world be other than him? It cannot be. Therefore, the divine can come down into the physical world and even assume a human body. In fact, all human beings are potential avatars. Okay? They can be potential avatars. Okay. That's it. But when you realize the divine, you need not be an avatar. Okay, an avatar becomes well known in there, but there may be avatars who we don't even know of. Because in those days, there was no press, there was no media, so no TV, no newspapers, no phones, no WhatsApp. so, so this is the peculiar idea of avatar. Christianity definitely says no. It's not possible for human beings to know God. Okay? Not only know, but even become is absolutely out of question. So now we can start reading the 15th chapter of the Gita. Now the essay on the Gita. The possibility and purpose of avatar. Look at the way Srendra is dealing with it. First of all, he'll look at the possibility. Is it at all possible? Because others are saying not possible. Then he says, what is the purpose of the avatar? So this is what he will look at. Okay, so we start reading. Anyone?
Would you like to read?
You have the text with you? Certainly. You can go.
Yes, of course.
Go ahead.
The possibility and purpose of avatarhood. In speaking of this yoga, in which action and knowledge become one, the yoga of the sacrifice of works with knowledge, in which works are fulfilled in knowledge, knowledge supports, changes and enlightens works, and both are offered to the Purushottama, the supreme divinity, who becomes manifest within us as Narayana, Lord of all our being and action, seated secret in our hearts forever, who becomes manifest even in the human form as the avatar, the divine birth taking possession of our humanity. Krishna has declared in passing that this was the ancient and original yoga which he gave to Vivasvan, the sun god. Vivasvan gave it to Manu, the father of men. Manu gave it to Ikshvaku, head of the solar line. And so it came down from royal sage to royal sage till it was lost in the great lapse of time and is now renewed for Arjuna because he is the lover and devotee, friend and comrade of the avatar. For this, he says, is the highest secret, thus claiming for it a superiority to all other forms of yoga, because those others led to the impersonal Brahman or to a personal deity to a liberation in actionless knowledge or a liberation in absorbed beatitude. But this gives the highest secret and the whole secret. It brings us to divine peace and divine works, to divine knowledge, action and ecstasy unified in a perfect freedom. It unites into itself all the yogic paths as the highest being of the divine reconciles and makes one in itself all the different and even contrary powers and principles of its manifested being. Therefore, this yoga of the Gita is not, as some contend, only the karma yoga, one at the lowest, according to them, of the three paths, but a highest yoga, synthetic and integral, directing Godward all the powers of our being.
Okay, so let's look at what he's saying. In speaking of this yoga means the yoga of the Gita, okay? The non-rejection of the physical world, remaining in the physical world with the divine consciousness. This yoga, in which action and knowledge become one. Knowledge is from the self and action is from in the physical world. So you combine the two, become one. The yoga of the sacrifice of works with knowledge. That's it, karma yoga. So action with knowledge. Action is the karma yoga and knowledge is with Sankhya yoga, in which works are fulfilled in knowledge. Okay? Normal human beings are doing works, but it is ignorance. But when you combine the two with knowledge, it becomes divine work, in which works are fulfilled in knowledge. Knowledge supports, changes, and enlightens works, and both are offered to the Purushottama, the third level. The supreme divinity who becomes manifest within us as Narayan, the Lord of all our being and action, seated secret in our hearts forever. So there is the Nara is a human being and Narayana is the Lord. And we are often traveling in the same chariot. Okay, there is a whole image in the Rig Veda where the Nara and Narayana are traveling in the same chariot going to heaven. By the time you reach heaven, they become indistinguishable. You put on the nature of the divine. They become absolutely, according to Sadrishya Mukti. Your Mukti becomes Sadrishya. You become like the divine. Okay. Lord of our being and action, seated secret in our hearts forever. He is always there in the heart. Who becomes manifest even in the human form as the avatar, the divine birth taking possession of our humanity. Krishna has declared in passing that this was the ancient and original yoga which he gave to Vivaswan, the sun god. Vivaswan gave it to Manu, the father of man. Manu gave it to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is the family of when Ram is a descendant, Ram and Lakshmana. So Ikshvakus were the whole tradition was there. They were a linear descent from the head of the solar line. It's very interesting what the solar line is and what the lunar line is. We really don't know. But Mother says that the Chinese are from the lunar line. So this is something that we have to really understand. What does it mean? There were people in the moon at some time. God knows. It's a mystery. So anyway, we come back to our text. Solar line. And so it came down from royal sage to royal sage till it was lost in the great lapse of time. Note the spelling of lapse, okay? It's not L-A-P-S-E, okay? It is L-A-P, plural lap. So one section of the journey, one circuit, that's what it means. So at one circuit, it got lost in the lapse of time and it is now renewed for Arjuna because he is a lover and devotee. friend and comrade of the avatar. In fact, Shri Krishna says that I am telling you all these things because you are very close to me. So this is again another problem where this says you are very close to me, and people say, oh my God, so there are favorites for the divine. So whereas it is supposed to be the divine is equal to everybody. So when you are using words, you come across all these type of contradictions, but you shouldn't take them too seriously because the truth is beyond words. That's what he's saying here, because he is a lover and devotee, friend and comrade of the avatar. For this, he says, is the highest secret, thus claiming for it a superiority to all other forms of yoga, because those others lead to the impersonal Brahman or to a personal deity. Impersonal Brahman is the Jnana Yoga, or to a personal deity is the Bhakti Yoga. Okay? You realize a person divine. Okay? So you get intimacy with the divine, a great amount of love and closeness, okay? Intimacy, to a liberation in actionless knowledge. This is again the Jnana Yoga. Or a liberation in absorbed beatitude. This is again Bhakti Yoga. Liberation in absorbed beatitude. But this means what I am saying, the integral, going to the Purushottama, the third level. But this gives the highest secret and the whole secret, because it brings us to divine peace, but also divine works. Divine peace and also divine works. To divine knowledge, action and ecstasy, unified in a perfect freedom. You are perfectly free, but you have all these things. There is knowledge, there is power, and there is peace. Everything. It unites into itself all the yogic paths as the highest being of the divine, reconciles and makes one in itself all the different and even contrary powers and principles of the manifested being. Therefore, by the way, what are the contrary powers and principles of the manifested being? At the level 1, there are dualities. That's what I mean by contrary powers and principles. Everything in the physical world has got an equal and opposite. Love has got hate, okay? Generosity has got miserliness. Okay? Hot has got cold. All the other dualities. So when you go to the higher level, the dualities vanish. They become one. Therefore, this yoga of the Gita is not, as some contend, only the Karma Yoga. Okay? It's not only the Karma Yoga. One and the lowest, according to them, of the 3 paths, but a highest yoga, synthetic and integral, directing Godward all the powers of our being. Now, there are some who say that only it is Karma Yoga. Gita is Karma Yoga. They stress the Karma Yoga aspect. And I had asked Jugalda, who is stressing the meaning? Okay? And most probably, it is Bal Gangadhar Tilak, okay, who stressed the Karma Yoga path. Okay? So everybody is saying it is not like that. It is all the 3. In fact, there is a great amount of discussion on the love aspect. Okay, love and devotion. That's why the Purushottama is both the impersonal as well as the personal. You get both love as well as knowledge, both. So that completes what he's saying in the first paragraph. Now we can go to the next paragraph. We've got 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Arjuna takes a declaration. So it's not a very big para. We can read that easily. So,
Rangana,
yeah.
that solar line means Surya Vamshi and lunar lines means Chandra Vamshi.
Yeah, that's right. But I don't know about that. Because what is meant by Surya Vamshi? It must be symbolic. So I really don't know. It's a little bit of a mystery to me. Because Mother speaks of the lunar line, okay? She does say that the Chinese are from a lunar line and the Indians are from the solar line. So what is exactly meant by that, I don't know.
Okay, mother did not tell the meaning of that
No,
solar line.
she just said that the Chinese are from the lunar line. She just mentioned that. Maybe she thought it very obvious. Anyway, so let's read the next one. It's not a very big one. Who can read? Can Archanati read? Is it possible? Or is she a little too late? Maybe she has already left. I think she is not there on the line. So anyone, Shilpa, you want to read? Shilpa also doesn't seem to be there. So,
Shall I read?
yeah, Kiran.
Yes, I can.
Oh, Shilpa has joined. Okay, Shilpa, you want to read?
Yes.
Arjuna takes the declaration. Kiran, next time
Shall
you'll
I
read.
read?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Arjuna takes the declaration.
The Arjuna, no, the possibility and purpose of avatarhood, no?
Yes, yes. Second
Yes.
paragraph. Arjuna takes the
Second-
declaration.
Yes, I'll read that. Arjuna takes the declaration about the transmission of the yoga in its most physical sense. There is another significance in which it can be taken, and ask how the sun god, one of the firstborn of being, ancestor of the solar dynasty, can have received the yoga from the man Krishna, who is only now born into the world. Krishna does not reply, as we might have expected him to have done, that it was as the divine, who is the source of all knowledge, that he gave the word of Deva, who is his form of knowledge, giver of all inner and outer light. Bharga Savitur Devasya Yono Diyo Prachodaya. He accepts instead the opportunity which Arjuna gives him of declaring his concealed Godhead, a declaration for which he had prepared when he gave himself as the divine example for the worker who is not bound by his works, but which he has not yet quite explicitly made. He now openly announces himself as the incarnate Godhead, the Avatar.
Okay, so there you go. So he is referring to that famous Gayatri mantra. Okay, Bhargo Savitur Devasya Yono Dhiya Prachotaya. So there are two. There is a Gayatri mantra, the traditional Gayatri mantra, and there is also Sriyando's Gayatri mantra, which he has twisted a little bit. He has changed it a little bit to suit his own purpose. So the traditional Gayatri mantra goes like this. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. And Sriyando's Gayatri mantra goes Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Deepayet. They are the two. So slightly amended the thing. His Gayatri mantra. And these were, we can also use these as mantras. Of course, the Gayatri mantra is used extensively in India. We know that. And it's got a very big power of its own. Sound has got, mantras have got tremendous sound power. Like Savitri. Savitri also has got sound power. Although it's in English, but still, it is got that. So, this is the, we'll quickly go through what he's saying. About 4 or 5 minutes. Arjuna takes a declaration about the transmission of the yoga in the most physical sense. Because Sri Krishna is saying that I gave, and how can he? Sri Krishna is living now, but how can he have lived 20,000 years earlier? So there is another significance in which it can be taken. And asks how the sun god, one of the firstborn of beings, ancestor of the solar dynasty, can have received the yoga from the man Krishna, who is only now born into the physical world? Krishna does not reply, as we might have expected him to have done, that it was as the divine, who is the source of all knowledge, that he gave the word to the Deva, who is his form of knowledge, giver of all inner and outer life. Bhargo Bharga Savitu Devasya Yono Dhya Prasudaya. Bharga, light, the light of the sun. Okay? Devasya, the sun is the Deva. Yona Dhya Prasudaya. Let them enter into and illumine our mind. That's what it is. He accepts instead the opportunity which Arjuna gives him of declaring his own concealed body. Now he declares himself to be the Supreme Divine. He has not said that earlier. A declaration for which he had prepared him, for which he had prepared, and when he gave himself as a divine example of for a worker who is not bound by his works, by which he has not yet quite explicitly made. He now openly announces himself as the incarnate Godhead, the Avatar. Now, it brings interesting that does the Godhead, does the Avatar declare himself to be God? Sri Krishna definitely does in the Gita. Ramakrishna also said that in a certain way. He said, Jai Ram, Jai Krishna, Shai Ramakrishna. The one who was Rama, the one who was Krishna, that himself, he indeed is Ramakrishna. So in other words, you can take it as a self-declaration of avatar. What about Srivamdo? He never says that, okay? But he hints at it. There are many, many hints. There is even a Hindi book in which he has collected, the author has collected all the statements which are indicative of his being an avatar. Okay? So it's very interesting. And we can end on a slightly, in a humorous tone. There is a story about two ashramites, okay, fighting with each other. One says Srivamdo is an avatar, and the other one says Srivamdo is not an avatar, or may not have been an ashramite, he may have been a visitor or something. So they fell into an argument, and the argument entered. This is a joke, but it's a real joke. Okay, it's really happened in the ashram, and they started fighting with each other, even physically. They came to blows. I don't know if you know the story, but they came to blows, and then this was reported to Sri Aurobindo. Okay, the one who thought Sri Aurobindo is an avatar beat up the other fellow. Okay, gave him a solid beating. So the one who thought that Sri Aurobindo is not an avatar. So then this was reported to Sri Aurobindo that this is what happened. And Sri Aurobindo humorously, he asked, after the beating, did he acknowledge me as the avatar? So he shows Sri Aurobindo's sense of humor, but he's not saying whether he is avatar or not. But there are enough indications to show that avatar. In one place where Dilip Kumar Roy is telling Sri Aurobindo, I constantly want to worship Krishna. Whenever I do it, Krishna comes to me. So Sri Aurobindo says, no problem at all, because it's the same. Okay? In fact, Sri Krishna descended into Sri Aurobindo's body. So how can he not be the avatar? Okay? Into his own body he came. But the avatar need not always declare himself to be an avatar. And even when he declares himself to be an avatar, it is not like the human being who out of ego can boast of his own divinity. But Sri Aurobindo does not do that. He just keeps going. Okay, so next time we'll start with, we have had occasion already. It's a very funny story Okay, but it is there in the evening talks. So we have had occasion already. I'll make a note of
Yes. I was wondering, I have read it somewhere.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Rangat.
it. Okay, au revoir everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Rangala. Thank you, Rangana.